This is Adrian Pratt, and welcome to another edition of Kolkata, Adda, though this one is about Shantiniketan. I began this series of videos with friends to talk about various themes that are appearing in my new book. It is a sequel to Overlords of K Street, that's set in Calcutta. Today, I am talking with Nayana Gangooly, a dear friend from the City of Joy. However, she also owns a homestay in Shantiniketan, a quiet town in rural Bengal, founded at the beginning of last century by Rabindranath Tagore as an experiment in outdoor education, artistic freedom, and global humanism. An idea as much as a place. I hope you enjoy it. Hi, Nayana. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Adrian, good morning, or should I say good evening from my point, wherever I am.
Well, yes, it's morning here, pouring with rain, so I'm happy to be inside and chatting with you about Shantiniketan. And I believe you're joining us today from there.
Yes.
So I was wondering if perhaps for those who haven't been there, if you could paint us a picture of Shantiniketan, a little bit of its history, its purpose, and what it's like today.
Oh dear, that goes back a while. So let me start. It predates Rabindranath Tagore, who probably everyone's heard of as the first non-European Nobel laureate. And this area was discovered by his father, who his name was Rabindranath Tagore, and this area was owned by a friend of his father called Bhuban Mohan Sinha. And Rabindranath and Bhuban Mohan Sinha came for a jaunt to look around Bhuban Mohan Sinha's properties, and Rabindranath fell in love with this space, and was a he was a very spiritual man. He started what we call now the Brahmo Samaj, or was one of the movers and shakers of the Brahmo Samaj, which is a anti. It's a sort of a anti-Brahmanical Hinduism. So it was a Reformation movement against Brahmanical Hinduism.
Okay.
So Rabindranath sat between two trees, and we call them chatim trees in Bengali, but they're known as the devil's tree, and was meditating, and he loved the space, and he asked his friend if he could buy the space, buy the area. And the friend said, no, we do not have deals like this between friends, but I will lease it to you for 1 rupee a year. And that's how Shantiniketan came to be. So Rabindranath built a house which was called Shantiniketan. Shantiniketan literally means the abode of peace. And then he built what is known as, we call it the mandir or the temple. And the temple is made of crystal. It's a copy of Crystal Palace in London, and is made of stained glass and has no idol, because that was part of the Brahmo Samaj belief that there should be no idol worship. So it's just a space. It's very beautiful. It's wrought iron and glass and stained glass. And you have prayer services. So you have hymns and prayers and songs and things in that space. And then he started a school to teach Brahmo studies to young men. And that was called Pathabhavan. So this whole space was called the ashram by Rabindranath. And Rabindranath, who was born in 1861, would visit this place since he was about 17 years old. Subsequently, Rabindranath took it over. I won't go into the long history of how he took it and why he took it over. His father gave him, he always wanted a space that had a different way of promoting education. He believed, as in Rabindranath, believed that education should be in the outdoors amongst nature, and that the children would learn much more from nature than they would learn sitting in a closed classroom. And he wanted a space for this. So his father said, well, I have the space. Why don't you start using it? And that's when it sort of evolved. So Patoboko Bhavan became a school for children. And once Rabindranath was awarded the Nobel Prize and he went around the world, even the US, several times, sort of crowdfunding for what is now known as the Vishwa Bharati University, which is the world in India. And that's what it means. And that was established in 1921 in Shantiniketan. And Rabindranath shuttled between all his international programs and Shantiniketan till he died in 1941. And this place became the hub of education, culture, music, everything internationally. And it was a very, very, it was like, I mean, I would, I'm sort of reaching out there, but I'm going to even call it a cult almost. And, people are going to be very annoyed with me for calling it a cult, but it was like a movement. So it wouldn't be a cult in a negative sense, but a cult, it was a movement of a different kind of space and a different kind of education, a different kind of freedom of people to congregate and live with each other and amongst nature and amongst the environment that they found themselves in.
So you and your family have had a long history in Shantiniketan. How did that form you, the relationship that you've had with the place personally?
Well, actually, this is a bit of a this is so my family are both my parents are from the Tagore family, but really had very little to do with Shantiniketan. And it was I who came here in I think it was 86 or 87 for the first time. And I loved it. And I just loved the perfume of the flowers that were in bloom. And this was in during Holi, so it would have been March, April. And it just the trees were all flowering, and the perfume in the air was just so amazing. And I went back to my parents and I sort of said, why don't you people have anything to do with Shantiniketan? And somehow being sort of corporate people, yet though my father was an artist, didn't really have anything to do with Vishwabharati. And I can't say there was anything terribly wrong about that because Vishwabharati has his own space, and my parents were very different. And then I came back in 1990 and, I saw more of it and discovered more of it and then sort of convinced my parents to come. And then they started visiting and they fell in love. And then before I knew it, they were suddenly buying a property. And, they were not the kind of people who bought properties and made houses, but then they were buying a property. And I was in the UK by then. And they were buying a property and they built a house. And then they passed on. So I had to look after the space. And my father, who was a painter, really enjoyed being here and painting here. And he loved the atmosphere. And then he started meeting up with the artists. And he already knew them from Calcutta. But this space has a different vibe, a different energy. And I think that's the only thing I can call it, is an energy. That's very difficult to describe.
So the original purpose that Tagore had in mind when he set up first his school and then Vishwa Bharati, does that spirit, does that vibe still exist in Shantiniketan? Are people who live there now still true to that mission, that cause?
I don't know whether they're true to the mission, because I think the mission was Tagore's mission, and Tagore was not an ordinary man. I mean, whatever one may say about him, he was way beyond his time, and he was a serious, I don't know, a global thinker. He has a vision that was so far-reaching that I doubt anybody could dare say that they were anywhere close to it. But they would like to live in those footsteps. And I think a lot of the people who are living here now, and I find very interesting, a lot of not only the Vishwa Bharati people, but people who were sort of associated with Vishwa Bharati at some point, and are not old, not elderly, young people are living here and making, working remotely or working with various projects that are connected to Vishwa Bharati or not connected to Vishwa Bharati, but are finding some kind of a meaning here.
Mhm.
And more so, which is interesting. So it's not just a retired person's town or just a university town. It's more than that.
As I told you, I only visited once, and it was for work, so I wasn't able to sort of plunge into the full
Yeah.
feeling of the place. But one of the things I noticed, because we visited a number of sort of artisans and craftsmen, and I believe that Tagore wanted to promote the arts and artisans as an important part of life. We visited people who were potters. We went to a place where they'd collected a whole bunch of villagers to who made cloth or shirts or kurtas and were helping them export, sort of collectivize them. And it seemed that that was something that is still very much valued in Shantiniketan.
Hugely. And I think that's my main focus here has been to connect with as many artisans as possible. I have worked in the textile world for many,
Mhm.
many years, since 1994. So being part of this environment has really, really uh, been, it's been astounding. And what I've also been able to do in the past years, uh, uh, sort of during COVID when I was locked down and I was locked down here. I moved from Calcutta to Shantiniketan and I reconnected with a lot of the artisans that I met previously. And I've actually developed a sort of tourist or a travel trail around Shantiniketan, around Birbhum, and around the artisans primarily. And they go from potters to textile makers to embroiderers to all kinds of metal workers to all kinds of things. And a lot of people doing natural dye, a lot of people who've, been trained by people from Japan, from people from all over the place. It's quite incredible, the energy that has come in. But they have mostly the people, the ground, the group, grassroots level people, have stayed true to their uh, to their roots. And if you ask them how and where they get the energy from, and they will say it's all thanks to the um, spirit of Tagore.
Wonderful.
And you can feel it because there is a sense of, there's a man who makes little lacquer dolls. And these lacquer dolls used to be incredibly popular 100 years ago when people used to only play with lacquer dolls. And lacquer was something that was found in this area and in fact was being exported by the East India Company. It no longer is. It's very difficult to find it. But he continues to make these little lacquer dolls, and he's probably one of the only people doing it in the whole country,
That's
probably. Yeah,
that's
and
wonderful.
he's just lovely. And he's got a tuk-tuk that he uses to advertise whatever advertising work that he needs to do. I mean, whatever's being advertised.
Mhm.
And that's his main job. So he goes around the tuk-tuk sort of advertising doctors and professionals and new whatever product is in the market. But the job that he loves is making these lacquer dolls, but there's no market for it,
Yeah. That's
you
wonderful
know.
that he's still
Yeah, but he still, yes, he still does it,
still
and
plying his trade.
yes, yeah.
But has there been an effort to sort of help um, artisans like that who are applying traditional trades to connect with the world, to sort of not just have a small market in Shantiniketan every weekend or during the melas, but to export to the world at large?
See, there are two things here. There's one product, which is a katha embroidery, which is a running stitch that or quilting stitch that we do, which is very typical of Bengal. And it really is a quilting stitch. It started off by uh, sort of taking recycled fabrics, so fabrics that you're throwing away, your saris or your dhotis, and putting it together and putting a quilting stitch through it so you can use it again, literally like you do quilting in America.
Right.
It's just, and then they started putting patterns on it. And that became a very evolved art or craft, even a craft that's become an art. Now, Katha is very popular. And Katha has been, I would say, has been given the most emphasis in terms of developing and sending out, and there are clusters that have been supported by the government, and many international NGOs come and work with people here to do, work on Katha. Whether it's been done on anything else, frankly, I don't think so.
Okay.
Not really. There are two reasons. One, there is a lack of knowledge. Second is that whoever's creating or whatever they're making, they can only be made to a certain extent. It is not a wholesale production. It can only be produced
Right.
minimally.
Right.
There is a cooperative society called Amar Kutir, which is a cooperative society, and that's been there since the 1920s. And that space again was a very interesting space because that was a space that various people would go. It was in the middle of the forest, and they would go to hide and also conspire against the British. So, and it also was a place where they would conspire against, with the Naxalites. So it was a very exciting space. And the gentleman who started the cooperative society did it to uh, 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 sort of uplift the villagers around them. And he taught them various crafts that he had learned when he had traveled to the southeast of Asia and came back with batik and leatherwork and all kinds of things and taught them this. And this society is fairly international, and a lot of NGOs, international NGOs, come and buy from them, order from them, and take it out.
That's
And our
interesting.
couture has been running the way it has been running ever since I knew it, and that's been a long time. But it's a wonderful space.
So when I did come out there, I was with a lovely guy from Nebraska in the United States, which is, the heartland of
Yes,
America. And he was so excited to come. And, in the evening before dinner, he went down to the Kopai River just to
yes.
sort of connect with nature. And then at sort of 5:30 in the morning, he was up, and I think he went to the ashram on the campus and meditated with some people who were just doing that out in the open. You yourself run an award-winning homestay there. Um, the guests that come largely, why are they drawn to Shantiniketan?
Several reasons. One is, it's one of the closest places to come to from Calcutta. So it's the easy access, lots of trains, the roads are pretty good. People have heard of Tagore's University, they come for that. And it's just, I think primarily it's an easy getaway,
Mhm.
but also I think it is this magnetic pull that we talk about here quite, some of us talk about it because this is a magnetic pull that was felt by Rabindranath's father. And apparently, Birbhum, the region that Shantiniketan's in, is part of the Chota Nagpur Plateau. And apparently it's been, Birbhum literally means land of the brave. Bir Bhum. So Bir is powerful and brave, and Bhum is Bhumi, which is land.
Okay.
So apparently, it's written in the Puranas, in our sort of ancient texts, that this area has a magnetic pull. And perhaps this is a reason that a lot of people are attracted to this place, as Debendranath was, because we have the bowels, the minstrel
Mhm.
singers, fakirs, we have craftspeople, and we have the prior to everyone else, we have many tribal villages dotted around the area. Now, they all must have settled here because the area is arid. It's very, very arid. It's a drought-prone area. And any plantation that was done was actually done during Tagore's time and his father. There was hardly any vegetation here. So why would people be attracted to this area? So, why would someone like me, who's very, very much a city person, be attracted to this area? And I think there is no right answer to it, and there's no one answer to it. It is something in the soil. It's a red soil that sort of it attracts you. I mean, you plant a tree, a flowering tree, or a fruit bearing tree. And unbelievably, the fruit that it bears, though it's so arid that you'll find it difficult to grow that tree, but once it does grow, the fruit is so sweet, it's unbelievable. You know, it's difficult. It's difficult to explain.
Well, isn't it true that Tagore wanted the students at the university not to wear shoes so that their bare feet could be in touch with the red soil?
Absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. It is that you need to feel the ground. You
Yeah.
need to feel the ground. You need to see it. You need to breathe the air. You need to hear the calls of the birds. You really need to connect to nature. Otherwise, if you don't, this is not a place that's going to be any interest to you at all
Yeah.
because it's not pretty, effectively. It's not scenic. Yes, go on. Sorry.
So, just from a practical point of view, how how far is Calcutta from you? And if you're coming by train, how long is the train journey?
Oh, Calcutta is not very far. It's about 240 kilometers on the long road and 167 kilometers on the sort of shorter road. And you have trains that get you here within 2 hours.
Okay, great.
Yeah, and there are many, many trains now. Yeah.
So, what is a homestay, and how is a homestay different from, say, a bed and breakfast or a motel?
Well, I think it's very close to a bed and breakfast, except that the bed and breakfast, they give you the bed and breakfast and they move away. But the homestay is that you are staying in my home and I'm resident and I'm sort of engaging with you most
Okay,
most of the time.
okay.
So unfortunately, you can't get rid of me.
Um,
So people are using the word homestay very loosely now, but I don't think it's not supposed to be run by caretakers. Let's put
okay,
it this way.
got it. So, in your homestay, I mean, I know you spend a lot of time in Calcutta, but when you wake up there in the morning, what's the first thing that makes you realize you're no longer in the big city? You're not in
The
Kolkata anymore.
birds, the birds. Oh, they're loud. They're loud. And would you believe there are no crows?
Really?
Yes,
Because
Adrian, there are no crows. One of my friend's son came and he's an ornithologist, and he counted 29 varieties of birds in this area, in my area.
that's
And
amazing.
yeah, and no crows. And every time you hear very occasionally that you hear a crow, they are, they're pushed off, shoved off, or by the other birds.
That's wonderful because, as you know, I worked right beside Crow Field in Calcutta, and that was
Of
the
course.
only bird song I heard day in and day out. And it was loud and sort of industrial in a way, is when it
Yeah,
comes to
yeah,
bird song.
yeah.
So tell me about some of the festivals that are celebrated there. Again, I believe Tagore was very much against exams and learning by rote, and for him, seasons and festivals were very important. And I believe there's a couple of big festivals that are important to the town there.
Very big. One is Posh Mela, which is just past. It's over Christmas. It starts on the 7th of Posh, which is 23rd December
Mhm.
normally, and goes on for about 6 days. And that's huge. And that again was rural craft uh, to be exhibited. And people would come from, and they still do, from Jharkhand, from Bihar, selling basketry and bows and arrows. actually, because the tribals, these were tribals, and that's what they use, to kill the small animals that they feed on, and all kinds of handwork that should be typical of this area. But this has now grown into something huge and very, very busy. But it still has a vibe which no other fair has. And
Are the
the other
students
big festival, yes, and the bowl saying, and there's a whole lot of
beautiful?
paraphernalia that goes around it. And then the other festival, which is very, very big and everybody hears of, is the Basanta Utsav or Bashanta Utsav, or Holi or Dole, as we call it. And Holi, is a festival of color in the rest of India. And this is celebrated slightly differently here, where you don't have any wet color being used, and it's only dry powder color. And it has a lot to do with again, it's a spring festival
Mhm.
and it's the beginning of spring. So you're basically going around enjoying the change of season and going from door to door and friend to friend to
Nice.
welcome them into the environment and the next harvest and the spring. So it's again with the university, there'd be songs and dances and musical programs, and people would go from group to group, and there'd be dancers and singers in every group, and you would go from group to group, sort of asking if you could, anoint them with some crazy color, and it's a wonderful festival.
That's lovely. And again, Tagore didn't believe in walls, right? So he didn't want there to be a town gown distinction. He wanted universities to be involved with village life and village life to be involved with the students. Is that still sort of an operating philosophy, or?
Unfortunately not. And I'm going to go out there and talk about it. Uh, I think it's, the idealism of Shantiniketan, to be very honest, is no longer prevalent. The idea is, but the idealism isn't.
Mhm.
Now, if you have a no-wall space, you're going to have infiltrators. And you're going to have people taking over land because we, particularly in India, our population is beyond control. So, how do you tell people that this is a university and you cannot come and put up your little hut here, or you can't come in and park your car here just because it's an open space? And for that reason, I would understand if they put up bar, sort of wiring around or fencing around the university, which was done previously, but you could still look into the university. So it should still be the same space, the outdoors and the indoors kind of thing, and the indoors of the university and outdoors of the university. But what happened over the COVID was that there was a vice chancellor here who was not particularly popular, and he actually put up concrete walls. And there was a huge backlash, but there were several concrete walls put up between the university and other spaces, and covering even lakes and ponds. And that was very disturbing for people.
Mm.
And I think I mentioned this to you before, that there seems to be some kind of a political, uh, uh, you know, connection here, which is not very comfortable.
But so just a couple of years back, Shantiniketan won the distinction of becoming a UNESCO World Heritage Site. Has that sort of complicated the situation as you describe it, or should that help when it comes to things that you have just talked about?
See, uh, I don't know. Well, the fact is that the university, the ashram area should definitely be a UNESCO site because it's got some beautiful buildings and some beautiful spaces, a lot of beautiful art, sorry, by famous sculptors and artists, Binod Bihari Mukherjee, Ram Kinkar Bej, etc., K.G. Subramanian, and a whole bunch of them. So those need to be protected, and those need to be seen by the world, and therefore it being a UNESCO site is a wonderful thing. But what has happened is that thanks to this, we started with COVID, where they were not allowing people into the university area anymore. It remained that way. And now they've got some kind of weird system where you can go only on a Sunday if you're a group of people and buy a very large price ticket to take a walk around the university area. So all that is a little difficult for me to understand.
And
And
Tagore would
also,
not
as far
approve.
as sorry?
Tagore would not approve of that.
He would definitely not approve of it. He would definitely not approve of it. I think they have to find a better system or make it more frequent, charge for it for sure. I don't see why you shouldn't. And that way it protects the university and also gives it some income because there's a lot of infrastructural improvements that they can make. But where the town is concerned and the town around it is concerned, there have to be a lot of infrastructural improvements that are not being made. And even within the universities, occasionally hear of, the fine arts section having a new building or something, but nothing to the magnitude that a university of the size that Vishwabharati is, or the quality and the importance that Vishwabharati can be in the world is not being looked at.
So I'm unfortunately being reminded that we're running out of time here. So if I could just ask you what the relationship is between Calcutta and Shantiniketan. I mean, I know there's been this sort of distinction, and people say that Shantiniketan was where people came to help with the Bengali Renaissance. There was a different form of sort of politics and nationalism discussed there compared to the sort of crazy hub of nationalistic Calcuttan politics with the communism, the Naxalites, and everything. Is that still a sort of a dynamic that exists, or what is the relationship between the two places today?
I think the Bengal Renaissance was very much a Calcutta thing.
Hmm.
It was very definitely a Calcutta thing. It was started by Raja Ram Mohan Roy, I would say, and it ended with Rabindranath Tagore. And in between, there were several players.
Okay.
But yes, so I would say that it ended in the house of Jorashako. So if you want to connect Jorashako to Shantiniketan, yes, there's a direct connection. And the Bengal School of Art, which developed in Calcutta, took a finer, got into a finer space in Shantiniketan because he created that space
Mhm.
for the artists to come and work. But where Calcutta and Shantiniketan is, I mean, I think they're very separate and they're very connected. It's a Bengali soul. And the Bengali soul is a Calcutta soul that connects to Shantiniketan only in the way a person who's a Bengali, and Adrian, I would call you one, is. I mean, you don't really, Bengali is, honestly, it's not a race. It's a mindset. It's a sensitivity. And that's the way I feel. I think anybody who connects to Bengal and has lived there and can understand the way this moves, the situation, the way the country, the state moves, or the place moves, can understand this. And that is how it connects because it will be. But there are so many people who come, say, to my homestay. But I've got guests coming from Pune tomorrow, people who come from Bangalore, from Madras, from everywhere, who love Shantiniketan. And so it doesn't have to be only the Calcuttan who loves it.
Mhm.
And most of the Calcuttan who you and I would have known socially, let's put it this way, would think it's passé to come to Shantiniketan.
Interesting.
And now it's becoming a popular thing. Oh, let's go to Shantiniketan for the weekend. We can go and stay at Amboli or Nayana's homestay or this and that. And, buy some pottery here or do that and here. But they don't feel it. They will never be able to sit cross-legged with a bunch of boughs and hang out there. It's not there because a Calcuttan is a city person primarily. And the debate that happened in Shantiniketan and the debate that happened in Calcutta are also different. Shantiniketan and the environs did not actually, so Nehru, Gandhi, etc., would come to talk to Tagore at Shantiniketan because this is where he started spending most of his time. So that debate happened here. And the debate that happened when I was telling you about Amar Kutir, etc., was happening more in the rural sector and the grassroots sector because they were being attacked, the British were being attacked from all ends. But Calcutta was more the intellectual hub of uh, the reaction against the East India, the British. So it was a different scenario. So what you have at, say, the College Street of Calcutta or the Coffee House of Calcutta is not the same debate or the discussion that you would have in Shantiniketan. Shantiniketan really would be more art and craft orientated, art orientated, I would say.
Well, before we get unceremoniously cut off, I just want to thank you so much for, a really beautiful and powerful description of the place you obviously love so much and that is still very, very important to you. It's lovely to see you, and I thank you so much for your time, Nayana.
Thank you, Adrian.
Have a great rest of the day.
Lots of love to AB and everybody. Bye.